Hello friends, welcome to another episode of Best To-Do List application. In our previous video, we created the model for creating our to-dos. You can enter a to-do here, and when you click on save, it should create a to-do, which is what we're going to handle in this video. We're going to handle creation of to-do and also displaying the to-do on this screen. So before we continue, make sure you remember to subscribe to the channel if you've not done that already, and also don't forget to comment down below and smash the like buttons. Okay, so in our code, this is our actions. So we're going to create another action file. I'm going to call it to-dos. And also we need to create a reducer file for that too. I'm going to call it to-dos reducer, or just say to-dos. Just call it to-dos. Good. Then in our context, we need to create another file called to-dos context. To-dos context. Good. So let's go back to our action. Inside our action, we're going to create the action for creating a to-do. So this is our action. So we have imported the API call function and the create to-do action. This is it. We have the loading, the success, and the failure actions being dispatched. And also I would like to create another action for fetching the to-dos. So since we're going to be handling creation and fetching, let's just include an action for fetching to-dos at once. So this is the action for fetching our to-dos. Now that we've created our two actions, the create and fetch, so let's go into our reducer and also handle those actions being dispatched. So inside our reducer, I'm going to create the reducer for to-dos. So let's do good. So we've defined the parameters and the initial state is not defined, so we need to define that in our context, our to-dos context. So I'm going to just scaffold our to-dos context. So I'm just gonna copy this auth context and do some modifications in it. So we have this. Instead of auth reducer, I'm going to do the import the to-dos reducer. Good. And in our actions, so let's go back to actions and export the actions we created. This is how we're going to export them. So here in our context, I'm going to now copy this and do this. Good. And our initial state, I'm going to have three state values inside. Right, so we are done with this. Now let's go back to our reducer. Inside our reducer, I'm going to handle the case for the create, or I'm going to handle the case for a loading dispatch function, the success and the failure of creating and reading. So this is our reducer. We have the switch statement, the case for loading, and we don't really need this. We don't need the loading item since our application is going to be very fast. So we have the state, that, and create error. And here we have the fetch error. So we have our three state values, the to-dos, the create to-do, and the fetch to-do error. So For the create success, when it's a success creation, when the creation is a success, I'm going to get the returned to do, which is in the action payload, and I'm just going to update the to-dos array with that value. So I'm just updating the to-dos array with the created to-do. So this is what I'm doing. I'm like spreading the to-dos in the to-dos array, and I'm also adding the newly created to-do in the array. So that's just it. For in case of failure, I have a create to-do error. Same thing for loading. Same thing for fetching. For the fetching, I don't need to update the array because I'm fetching everything. So I just need to pass the payload to that to do. So I'm not spreading any value here, and that's its value too. Good. Now that we've handled the creation and fetching in our actions and registers, let's now go to our component. Inside the to-dos component, the create to-do, now I'm going to handle the change and submit events. So let's create an event handler for handling change. That's an event as a parameter, and then we're going to prevent the fall. This is to prevent the form from submitting. And also here, what I just need to do is I'm going to create a state variable using the useState hook. So in here we will have our state variable is going to be to do. So I'm going to set to do in our handle change event handler. So I'm going to do is set to do, and then I'll pass it the target value, and that's also how to do has a value now. And I'm also going to create another event handler for submit. An event, and I'm just going to prevent default. Next, with an if statement, I'm going to check if the to-do state is defined. If it is defined, I'm now going to we need the action. So I'm going to import use context hook. So this use context hook, I'm going to do we have a state and the create to do. Now here I'm going to do the context. I'm going to pass it the context coming from the to-dos context. So it's supposed to be to-dos context. So let's import that. So we've imported the context, and that's just it. Now that we have our create to do action, I'm going to now call that action here and pass it the value. So this is an async action. This is an action async function. So I'm just going to wait. Say create to do, and I'm going to pass it the to do. So let's see. So this is expecting it to do and the cookies, the JS cookie library. So this to do is supposed to be an object with a title inside. So this to do is like the title of the to do. So I'm just going to pass in here. I'm going to give it an object and a title of to do. And the second parameter, let's import the cookies. I'm going to pass that as the second parameter here. Good. Now let's, in our input field, I'm going to do on change give it the handle change event handle and a button, and on click, and then I'm going to give it handle submit. So we are good with this. Good. So this is going to I'm expecting this to work. So let's go ahead and also create the component. Since we have a component for listing to dos already, so I'm going to create another component for listing the to dos. Like I'm going to create a child component that is going to render our to do. So let me call it the render to dos component. Good. And the next thing I'll do is to import our context. So let's import our context. So we've imported our to dos context. Let's also get the use context hook in React and context. Good. Inside this, we have a class name of container. But before this, let's use the use effect. Let's import the use effect for fetching our to dos. And this use effect is going to fetch our to do. So this is going to be an immediately invoke function. And this immediately invoke function is an async function. Takes in an async anonymous function. This anonymous function has the await and fetch to dos. Well, this fetch to dos takes in cookie as parameter, so let's import that. Good, so our fetch is going to work. Good. So next thing is in here, I'm going to create the variable and justify content center. So this is it. Inside this div, I'm going to do this. I'm going to now render our to dos. So which means I'm going to need the state coming from the use context, and in here you're going to have the state that to dos. If that exists, so I'm going to have the state that to dos map to do. And this map, I wanted to take two arguments, the index. Let me just give it I. And the index always starts at 0, so I want it to start at 1. So I'm immediately increasing the value by 1. And in here, inside our to do, I'm going to just return MD 10 and then plus the to do. So this will take a key of to do the ID. Good, let's see how that works. Okay, in our reducer we didn't import this value, so let's import it. So another error, let's say attempt to, we didn't export this reducer. Okay, now let's see something. Let's create a to do. cannot destructure state of object as it is undefined. So let's go to our list to do, and also make sure we wrap this in the provider. And let's import that provider here. So inside this, I'm going to import the use context, and what to do context. So let's come down here. So this is still having some error. Since this create model is a child component of the list to do's, you can just do this, and it's supposed to be okay. Good. So our model works like now. Now that it works, okay, let's now go into our list to do's and then book the render to do. So cannot read property undefined. So inside our render to do, instead of logo, let's use effect here. I'm going to call the use effect in the list to do's component. So I'm going to have so we have it here. Make sure cookies is imported. The state is not defined. So go to use effects. Let's import that too. Cannot read property detail undefined. So I'm only going to use an if statement. Say if error is defined and you have error response. So if there is a response on the error object, dispatch that. So let's see where our error is coming from. Objects are not valid as React child. So where is that error coming from? So let's go inside the component where to-dos are getting rendered. So in here we have to do rendering a key to-do title. Good. So these are our to-dos. Let's create a new to-do. Let's see how it gets rendered. So I'm going to have to-do. So we have the third to-do added to the list. Now we notice that they are not sorted, so I'm having first to do, second to do, first to do. So let's sort the array. To sort that, I'm going to come here. I'm going to give the sort. This sort is going to take a function, a callback, and that callback takes two values, a and b, and returns a dot id minus b dot id. So I'm sorting this in descending order. So by the time we check, it's going to change. So we have the third to do. Okay, let's sort it like this. Nope, this is not it. Let's do b minus a. Good, this is how I want it. So we're sorting it in descending order. That is the most recent to-dos. These at the top. Good, now that we are doing that, let's apply our stars. So we already had a class in our styles called to-dos. So I'm just going to apply that class here. To-dos. Good, so we have this. The next is to these are to-dos. They're supposed to have a higher font, a bigger font weight. So let's wrap it in H3. Let's check our stars. So let's wrap it in H5. So I also want to give it down to number them. So I'm going to give it so they are numbered, and this is supposed to, yeah, that's cool. So inside here, so we have some styles here already. So in our style we have a class of to-do. So this is to style each to-do, and I'm going to give that here. Good, so this looks almost exactly like the one we have here. Almost exactly. So we have styled our to-dos. Now our next step is to give it the buttons for, here we have the add item console, but in this case I'm going to call it a task, not items. So let's give it the buttons. So inside here I'm going to give first button times and give it a class. Let's look at the classes. Float right and delete button. Good. So we have class name. Good. In place. The next button is going to be the add text button. So I'm also going to give it some class. Right, good. And a class. That is the add button. And every style is applied to good. So this is cool for now. So I think we can end here for this video. So in our next video, we're going to handle displaying the to-do items, or call it a task. In our next video, we're going to display the tasks in each of these, and that's all. So guys, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next video.